Hello my friends, welcome or welcome back to my channel. It's Mama Ming here. In today's video, I want to share things that I wish I knew before ever getting pregnant. In this channel, I share a lot of my pregnancy experience, motherhood experience. If this is the first time you're in my channel, make sure you subscribe. It really helps me out. I hope to get you 1,000 subscribers maybe by the end of this year. That was my goal last year. But a little background information. This is actually my second viable pregnancy. As you can see, it's right there. Also, this is my fourth pregnancy ever. I had a miscarriage before I had my first baby, and my son is currently almost 2 years old, 22 months, and I had another miscarriage in between, and now I am pregnant with my daughter. It's 24 weeks. So since I've been pregnant 4 times, in today's video I want to share some of my experience and some of the things that I wish someone told me before I ever tried for a baby. So I hope this video can be helpful to you. Alright, so the first thing, in my original notes, my first thing was about first trimester, but honestly, now that I thought about it after planning this video, I think the first thing I want to talk about is miscarriages. I was debating if I wanted to start my video with a kind of like a heavy topic, but I think there's not a lot of women actually talked about it. Personally, I suffer from 2 miscarriages, and I've had friends who suffer from 2 to 4 miscarriages in the past. I've had friends who had multiple consecutive miscarriages, went to the doctors, and there was unknown reason. They don't know why. So it could be a very emotional toll on women and family when you experience a miscarriage. So here is what I wish I knew before I ever started trying for a baby, before I ever tried like getting pregnant, having a baby, starting a family, is that miscarriage is just part of the experience. Miscarriages is just part of the pregnancy and motherhood, and the loss of a child, even though if it's an unborn child, is devastating. So if you ever experienced miscarriage before, or if you're experiencing one right now, my heart goes out to you. Like, there is nothing that people could say could literally make you feel devastating, because you're so excited when you find out about pregnancy, and then several weeks later, or maybe even several days later, you experience symptoms, bleeding. So here is what I learned about miscarriages. The first thing is miscarriages are very, very common, but because people don't talk about it a lot of times people think it's not as common as it actually is. 1 in 4 clinically recognized pregnancies end in miscarriage, and the majority of the miscarriages are explained by chromosome abnormalities. And what causes chromosome abnormalities? It really sometimes is just by luck and by chance. I didn't try for babies until I was like 32. So as I age, some of the eggs, they aged in my body as well. So when I ovulate, it could be like me ovulating, not a egg that carries the good genetic information. It could also be because of the sperm, because my husband is a working professional. He experienced a lot of stress during the day, and he also like goes to workout, heated workout. Sometimes maybe his sperm quality is not good either. So it could be that he had millions of sperm swim into that egg, and that sperm actually got into the egg, was not a good sperm. So miscarriages could be explained by chances. It's just bad luck. Sometimes it could also be explained by other lifestyle factors, your age, and other factors. And there are certain factors that are within our control, and there are also factors out of our control. So miscarriages, in a way, is just part of life. It's just how life and death is part of life. So I think the one way to think about it for me that was helpful to really process my miscarriages was that baby, if I carry to term and being born with that genetic disorder, he or she wouldn't have survived. Maybe he or she will survive for several weeks, and then his or her life will be suffering a lot, and the life would not be sustainable for a longer period of time, like trisomy. And even Down syndrome is the lightest case of trisomy. Like, it's just sometimes the life quality is not great. It's just a lot of suffering for the baby. So it was one of the ways that nature protects ourselves from suffering is like, if your body detects that the baby is not carrying the right genetic information, then it miscarries itself. So I actually also felt like the earlier miscarried, the luckier I was, in a way that I didn't have to do a DNC, because my first miscarriage ended in 7 weeks. Actually, at 6 weeks there was a heartbeat, but then at 7 weeks the heartbeat was gone. I felt like, yeah, it was really sad because I saw I saw the embryo, I saw the heartbeat, but the heartbeat was gone. But at the same time, I was like, I didn't have to do a surgery, I didn't have to do a DNC, I didn't have to do a lot of things. And the second miscarriage I had was very early. It's a chemical pregnancy that I had a late period. I found out I was pregnant. Several days later, I had bleeding and it was heavier than usual. And there was a chemical pregnancy. I didn't even see the baby or sac from ultrasound. Even though I suffer from 2 miscarriages, I am very grateful that I have my son being born alive and I have my daughter currently almost 24 weeks. But I just wish that I was more mentally prepared before I ever tried to get pregnant, like to know that there is a 1 in 4 chance that I could miscarry, and it's very common. It's not because I did anything wrong. It's just simply because sometimes life happens and we're just not lucky. All right, so the next thing that I wish I knew was that first trimester is actually the highest risk during pregnancy in almost everything. And contrary to common belief that a lot of people are like, oh, you're not even visible yet, you should just live on with your life. And once you're bigger and bigger and bigger, more people are like, are you okay to do squats? Are you okay to carry this stuff? Are you okay to do certain things? Are you okay to go to places? So here is what I learned about first trimester versus the other trimester. So the first trimester is when the baby first conceived and then implanted itself into your uterus and start to grow from a little cell into a group of cells into an embryo and finally develop into fetus and finally start to develop placenta. So this entire process is very delicate because it's basically everything is generated from that one cell, which is crazy. A lot of times being exposed to certain chemicals, being exposed to excessive heat, excessive drinking of caffeine, and also other factors in the first trimester is associated with higher risk of miscarriage, because certain things could actually affect your body, affects this cell generation, especially when it comes to like exposed to certain chemicals. There is a risk of something in every single stage of pregnancy. But a lot of times when I was talking to my friends who just got pregnant, who are thinking about pregnancy, they always tell me, hey, I'm gonna still go to those heated class until my last trimester. When I'm super huge, I'll probably stop working out as much, or I'll stop going to the heated workout classes, going to the hot rooms, going outside, blah, blah, blah. So until they're pregnant and then they're told by their doctor like, oh, don't do this, don't do that. So a lot of people, they are just so very surprised that, oh my God, I didn't know about this. If I knew, I wish I had changed my way of living before I ever even see my doctor at 8 weeks. And here is what I learned. So first trimester is the trimester that almost no one around you notice that you're pregnant because you're not showing at all. But your body is actually experiencing a lot of changes. The first change is your hormone levels. The surge of hormone levels in the first trimester is astronomical. It's crazy. It's giving me mood swings. It's giving me a lot of issues. It's making me tired. I was so nauseous. I didn't feel like a human. I felt like I was depressed. The second thing about the first trimester changes is that your blood volume starts to increase and your heart actually start to change as well. Your heart rate is higher. You start to feel more winded when you do the same level of exercise, even though you're not big at all. The third thing, that this is a scary case that I personally had a friend, she actually no longer remembers me, was that she was an instructor where I work and she teaches cycle class, which is a very cardio-based class. And she actually passed out and had a cardiac arrest during her pregnancy with twins in the first trimester. So this is also crazy because people are like, you're not even showing. You can still do like plank and push-ups. Why can't you do like those crazy like cardio? No, your heart is no longer the same, pumping the same like extra volume of blood. Your heart is affected by estrogen and progesterone. And there's so many things going on in the first trimester that your heart is no longer functioning the same. The fact that you're pushing yourself to like a heart rate to like 170 is very unsafe during the first trimester when you're going for cardio zone 3 to zone 4. So there are a lot of factors to consider in the first trimester versus in the second and third trimester. Since you're bigger, you will start to notice the difference of your body and you will start to slow down naturally. But the first trimester is when some people don't feel anything until like certain things happen. Like I have a friend, she shared that like when she was pregnant in the first trimester, she used to be a runner. So she was running every day until about 10, 11 weeks, she started bleeding and she was so scared, went to the emergency room and the doctor was like, no, you should not be like running this much because it's not hurting the baby. The baby are just cells, embryos developing. It's in a pool of water, but your placenta is about to detach from your uterus. You need to only walk, not jumping around, not working. Okay, again, this is not happening to everyone. There are other people jogging in the first trimester and are okay, but in her case, she actually had bleeding. She had issues, irritations with placenta due to her particular workout when she went to the doctor. So, but she didn't know. She was like, I felt fine, but then like suddenly I just started bleeding, which was very, very scary. So there's so many things, like I've heard so many stories and I've done my research about like heat and pregnancy because I'm a yoga teacher. I teach in a hot yoga room. I had to lower the heat because exposure to excessive heat in the first trimester is associated with spinal bifida and other issues with the pregnancy. I talked to multiple OBGYNs. I talked to multiple doctors that I used to have, and all of them give me the same answer is wait until the spinal cord is fully closed, which usually happen around 12 like to 13 weeks after the first trimester. If you have some exposure to heat, if you're not feeling faint, not feeling overheated, you should be fine. So that is another thing that I want to share is that a lot of times people, they are like, they see you're getting big. They're like, are you okay? Are you okay? Actually, I can do way more now in my second trimester compared to in my first trimester, even though I'm bigger. It's because in the first trimester, the risk of hurting my baby, hurting my developing placenta, hurting everything is way higher. The same thing with coffee. I didn't drink any coffee in the first trimester. Now I can drink some within the limit and it's considered safe. So contrary to a lot of the misconceptions or common beliefs that like, oh my gosh, the bigger you are, the scarier you are, a lot of times the first trimester is when the risk is very high. And again, once you're super big, you know when to stop. You know that you can't carry that huge weight because your back will start to hurt. You can't even hinge forward as much. So first trimester, be careful. I feel like it's better to be safe than sorry. The thing that I wish I knew before I ever was pregnant was that life is not fair. Okay, I think everyone knows this, but when you experience this, you will realize that life is truly not fair. There are certain people that they can just try and immediately get pregnant. And there are also other couples, they tried everything and then they went to the doctors, fertility doctors, they don't know why they tried for a whole year and not pregnant. Again, a lot of times it's just by chance. And a lot of times it's also like maybe you're under a lot of stress. Maybe you're not taking care of yourself, even though clinically there are no other like issues. So another thing that I realized life is not fair is that when I was pregnant with my first baby, I felt very nauseous, but I didn't throw up. But the second time, I felt like I was dying. I was throwing up twice a day, every other day. And I also talked to some women who actually never had any nausea. What? Why? And it was me dying over here, and they're like, we don't know how you feel. And then here's my husband on the side, like, hey, look at those women. They didn't complain as much. Why don't you just suck it up? Like, she's pregnant, she's doing fine, and why are you complaining and just hovering the toilet? I'm like, it's so unfair. It is very unfair. And personally, I had 2 pregnancies and the symptoms are very different. So I know life is not fair. Every single pregnancy, every single one is different. But hey, it's just sometimes when I was in the lowest point of my pregnancy, where I experienced pregnancy blues, mood swings, nausea, vomiting, and I felt like my life is about to be over type of thing. And the fact that you realize the next pregnant woman next to you have a similarly healthy baby, never experienced anything you experience, the feeling is not great. But I also want to say that if you have friends or partners who are pregnant, they're experiencing worse pregnancy symptoms than the other, don't compare the women. Don't hear like, hey, those women are more tough. You're just not as tough. Those women can work out as much. Like, don't do that. Like, I have so many people around me do that. It's just driving me crazy. And I just know I'm not the worst because I've had a friend who actually threw up so much that she almost fainted and she was in the hospital receiving IV with her second pregnancy. I was like, damn, I wasn't that bad. At the same time, like, don't compare yourself. It only makes you feel worse. And also, like, don't compare your partner or your friend with others. They're like, oh my gosh, I have friends who did this and then they said they never experienced this. Why are you so blah, 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 blah. I'm like, okay, in that case, why did I have 6-pack and you didn't? After me having a baby and you never had babies. So it's like, do you really want to compare? Do you really want to get there? It's kind of offensive sometimes, inappropriate. So, but I wish I knew life was not fair. Pregnancy symptoms vary person by person. And another thing that goes with it is pregnancy weight gain. Well, pregnancy weight gain is so different. I gained 50 pounds in my first pregnancy, to the point that some women, they were telling me that this is unsafe, this is blah, 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 you shouldn't be doing that, you should be controlling your weight. I was having a hard time controlling my weight gain. So I talked to my doctor, and my doctor was like, you had no gestational diabetes, so you have no sign of preeclampsia, you have no sign of all of these complications, and you started with lower weight, so you're fine. So again, I was just, I think at one point very jealous of women who can still fit into the pregnancy clothes, even though they had a bigger belly, but the arms and legs never get swollen, they never gain that much weight. But at the same time, hey, life is not fair. I don't think I went out of my way to gain weight and they went out of way to not to gain weight. But some people, they just gain weight differently. So life is not fair. I wish I knew that. Well, I knew that, but I really experienced the extreme examples of that. Fourth thing that I learned was that some complications of pregnancy are diagnosed later during ultrasound, and it's better that you're playing it safe than taking a risk. So I remember in my last pregnancy, in my actually second pregnancy, I was very careful not jumping in my workout, and some of my friends, they were not like judging me, but they were asking me, hey, do you think you're extra careful this time because you had a miscarriage last time? I said no, but this time I just felt different. I just don't feel like I should be jumping. And they were like, are you sure you're not like being overly cautious because you had a pregnancy loss? They were just trying to see like if it's because like a mental thing, but I was just like, no, this pregnancy felt very different. I just don't think it's appropriate for me to jump. So what happened was at the 20 weeks anatomy ultrasound, they found out that I had complete placenta previa. And placenta previa is the case where your placenta is covering your cervix at the bottom. And if your placenta previa doesn't resolve, you'll have to get a C-section because the placenta is covering where the baby comes out. And the different severity of placenta previa, you can have a complete previa where your placenta is completely covering your cervix. You could be having a partial placenta previa, like that it's half covering, or you can have a low lining placenta where it's not safe for you to deliver the baby vaginally, but it's still not completely like right there. It's not like covering, but it's just a little too close. So I had the worst case, which is complete previa, and the doctor said like most people who have placenta previa cannot work out at all because the risk is too high, because when you're buzzing up and down with pressure and jerking, there's a chance that your placenta could erupt and it could be a life-threatening bleeding situation. It could be a life-threatening situation for the baby as well. But because I was extra careful, I was very, like, I know to my body, and I'm a certified prenatal yoga teacher. My OB actually said that you can still continue to do what you did because it was not causing any problems, but just be very careful knowing the risk. So imagine if I didn't listen to my body. Imagine if I compare myself to the people on Instagram, like, they're on Instagram, TikTok, they're pregnant women with their bellies say, I am doing this, I am running, I am this, I am like doing like, and people are like, oh, you're badasses. And then the people around me in the fitness, like I am in the fitness industry too, they're like, why you're not doing this? What? Look at the other women. Look at this TikTok. If they can do it, you can do it too, blah, blah, blah. If I was influenced by them, like there's a chance my son wouldn't even be there. There's a chance that I died of excessive bleeding because guess what? I have a bleeding disorder. It's an autoimmune system where my body destroys my platelets. So if I start bleeding, I don't stop the bleeding easily. So the better way is not start the bleeding. So imagine if I didn't listen to my body before the 20 weeks where it was diagnosed, where my placenta is growing, developing, right, covering my cervix, where I jump around, irritate my cervix, irritate my uterus, irritate my belly, irritate my placenta. It could become a life-threatening situation. So very important is some complications are diagnosed later. And if you're very careful, sometimes it's okay. It's actually safe. Mine was corrected at 32 weeks. At 32 weeks, finally, my placenta moved and grew up to the upper side. So, but I was very careful from the start because I just had the feeling. And good thing I was very in tune to my body. I listened to my body instead of people around me, instead of Instagram, instead of TikTok. So again, it's better to be safe than sorry. It's all about the benefits and risk management. I end up get a really good workout without jumping around. I can get a really workout without like running. I can just like do some toe tapping. I can do some low impact cardio machines. So I just don't think the benefit is worth the risk just in case I was diagnosed with complications. The next one is always seek for a second opinion and to decrease the risk. So I've had people around me who listened to their OB and then something happened and they were like, yeah, but there's always a chance. But I talked to my OB, like my OB always asks me, like, do you have any questions? So I asked them these questions, the same questions I asked my OB, like should I wait? Should I do this? So my OB would never give me advice that the other OBs give to some of my friends. So that is when I learned that people practice medicine differently. Some people practice medicine more conservatively. Like, okay, there is a risk associated, even though the risk is low. This is what I learned. It's better to not just listen to that one OB, even though you trust your doctor. Always ask for a second opinion. And another thing is educate yourself. Do some research online. So for example, I have a friend who had hypertension in the first pregnancy and she wanted to try for a second baby. And her OB was like, yeah, as long as you wait for 6 months, as long as you wait for 6 months, you can get pregnant again. So she waited for 6 months, but her high blood pressure never resolved. So because of the high blood pressure, the hypertension, her blood vessels are weakened. So in her second pregnancy, she actually had a placenta that's like detached from her uterus. It was just floating in her uterus. She cannot lift weights. She cannot work out. She cannot even lift her current baby because she cannot lift anything over 10 pounds. So, and I talked to my doctor and I did some extensive research online when I was trying for my second baby. So the general rule of thumb, according to my research and my doctor, was that if you don't have any complications in your first pregnancy, it is safe to wait for 6 months before you try for the second baby. However, if you had gestational diabetes, hypertension, or other complications, or having a C-section in the first pregnancy, it's better to wait a little bit longer or at least 18 months between the pregnancies, just so that you can actually work on these issues and it can technically decrease the risk of like gestational diabetes happening again or hypertension happening again. So it gives your body a little bit more time to recover and recoup. So I was like, if I were her, if I asked for a second opinion, maybe the second time her blood pressure will be better controlled. Her blood vessel is not as weak. She may not have the complications. We just don't know. But the thing is that I learned also, there are also other stories around me, is that I just want to say that always ask for a second opinion. I think I am a very privileged in terms of like knowing a lot of people, because I work multiple jobs. I am a college professor. I am a yoga teacher. I work at a gym where a lot of OBGYN goes. Some of my friends are OBs, midwives, like I can ask them questions. But I also have a great OB that I ask questions as well. So that's the one thing that I learned, is always ask for a second opinion. And the moment I found out I had placenta previa didn't resolve, my OB immediately, and the moment that they found out my bleeding disorder was getting worse, my OB immediately referred me to a maternal medicine specialist, and she was like, you need a second opinion. I will still be your OB, but you need a second opinion, which I think is a very good practice compared to some of the other doctors. Like they don't necessarily give the patients the care that they need, even if it's just a second opinion. The next thing that I wish I knew was all natural is not always better. This is one of the misconceptions that I heard the most, and I actually went to a birthing class in my first, when I was having my son, and I was just really not a big fan of that doula. There's so many great doulas out there. Doula is a great profession that you take care of the patients mentally, physically, you advocate for your patients during the birth. But I just went to this doula and she just kept pushing us for all natural home birth, or at least using a birth center instead of a medical center. So I just want to let you know that all natural is not always better, because a long time ago in China, because I'm originally from China, there were not as much like medical facilities. A lot of times birth happened at home, or birth happened at a birthing center with a midwife that's medically trained. But the mortality rate is way higher than America, until that there was more like facilities and there was more doctors, there was more medical intervention, the birthing mortalities for both the mom and the babies becomes lower. So medical intervention can save lives. In the ideal scenario where there is uncomplicated birth for mom and the baby, home birth is completely safe. Birthing center is completely safe. I am referring to like just in case anything happened, there is a NICU team right there and then saving your baby. If just in case you're excessively bleeding, hemorrhaging, immediately blood transfusion can be given to you compared to if you're birthing at home. If you're birthing at home or birth center, you have to call the ambulance and you have to be transferred to the hospital, and time becomes the essence whether you and your baby can be saved. Like I've had a lot of friends who had a very uncomplicated pregnancy. Actually, I had the most pregnancy complications among all of my friends. But my birthing experience with my son was very uncomplicated, very smooth, versus a lot of people around me, they had a very smooth pregnancy, like minimal complications, minimal conditions that could throw them off. And then something happened. They had to have an emergency C-section. Baby is in distress, having to use the machines, life support machines and stuff like that, and having to be transferred NICU right away. So you just never know. Like, this is not to push you to only give birth to the hospital, but I just want to say, if you have people around you that push you not to use these medical interventions, or push you not to go to a medical facility for your birth, rethink the advice that they gave you and seek for a second opinion. Is that there's a chance that everything goes well for you. You give birth at home where it's very comfortable, very zen, very natural. There's also a chance that no one expected something happened and you have to be transferred to a hospital. And then there's like a traffic jam out there because of a construction in my city. And then an ambulance was delayed, you're delayed, and something happened to you and your baby. Is it really worth the risk? I don't know. It's you making the decisions. But I just want to say, if you have people around you advocating, pushing you to do all natural at home, all natural, like saying, how great it is, seek for a second opinion. Like, talk to more people. Like, talk to people who had a scary experience in the past. They'll always tell you, go to the hospital with a level 4 NICU. All right. So next one, if you have any questions, ask your doctor. And sometimes I could be shy to ask questions, but especially when it comes to like nutrition supplements, it says if you're pregnant or nursing, refer to your doctor. And then I asked my doctor reads the ingredients, reads the formula, said, okay, this is safe, or no, do not take this. So ask all the questions, like write down all of the questions before you ever see your doctor. Like, because sometimes I have so many questions, I just like sometimes I can't remember those, especially in my first baby. This baby, I don't have as many questions just because I've done it before, but there are also other questions coming on. And even if you've done your research online, talk to your doctor, because your doctor may know your case, because the online research, let's say if there is a survey study surveyed 1,000 women, you could be an outlier and you don't know it, but your doctor could know you are an outlier because of pre-existing condition. So talk to your doctor. So the next thing, I guess it's number 9, is reproductive health starts before even trying for a baby. I feel like I am incredibly lucky. I never had like actually ovulated until like I was like 22. Okay, so some backstories about this was that when I used to live in China, the middle school and high school in China are extremely stressful. They're way more stressful than my PhD program. And ever since I got my period, it was like regular for a while, but then every time I experienced stress, my period was just become like very short, like 20 days, 19 days. And sometimes it's very light, that is just no period but spotting. And towards when I was 17, I completely lost my period because of the stress. And I probably didn't eat enough healthy fatty acids back then too, because there are a lot of controversials. They're like, no, you should eat less red meat, you should eat less fat, you should eat more vegetables, fruits. So that's what I was doing. But I didn't know that I was doing harm to my body, because there's essential amino acids, essential fatty acids, even cholesterol, the good cholesterol that help you to produce the hormones. So anyways, and then it happened, and I was on hormone medicine, gained all the weight, and in college, I didn't have period again. It was just so bad until I found a really good retired doctor who's also an acupuncturist, retired from his doctor profession, become a full-time acupuncturist. Actually, it's part-time because she's like older and retired. So after I went to her for 2 months, my period was 28 days on the day for the rest of my life. And that's really, really saved me, because I remember going to my OB back then when I was a teenager. My doctor was like, it seems like you're not ovulating. You need to track your temperature to make sure you ovulate every single month. And now that I thought about it, I wasn't really ovulating as much. In a past month period, my reproductive health was all over the place. So as a woman, I wish I knew this when I was a teenager. So I wish I knew it a long, long time ago, is that your reproductive health starts before you ever start trying for babies. Like when you're a teenager, ever since you got your period. There are several factors in the play. The first thing is your diet should be very nutritious. It shouldn't be just vegetables and fruit. It should be including all the essential amino acids, essential fatty acids, including all the minerals and vitamins. The second thing is your sleep. I used to skip sleep all the time, go overnight in studying. If your sleep cycle is disrupted, your hormone cycles could be also disrupted as well. The third thing is your mental health. If you're super stressed, your body is just kicking in, hey, we're not in a good place for reproduction, so let's just get rid of that so that we can survive this stressful situation. Chronic stress is really, really bad. Exposure to toxins, that research has proven that phthalates are really bad for babies, especially male offsprings, when you're exposed to phthalates during pregnancy. Well, there are also other things like use of plastic, heating plastic in a microwave, and exposure to chemicals, nail polishes, and stuff like that. Not to say that you can't use nail polishes all the time, but just be mindful of the air ventilation. So reproductive health is so important for our health, and it's essential that you're healthy in this regard before even trying for baby. But I'm glad I learned a lesson. That's why I'm lucky to have children. Yes. What women don't talk about during the pregnancy symptoms, because oftentimes we hear about morning sickness. Like that's what people think, you're sick in the morning. No, it's all day sickness. I'm sick all the day, all day. Since I'm asleep to sleep. So, but there are also other symptoms that women don't always talk about because it's kind of awkward. The first one is mood swings. Is like when I get irritated very easily. I become very short on people sometimes because of the mood swing. Like my patience is very low when I'm pregnant. Irritation, I get irritated very easily. Sleep cycle changes. Your sleep cycle changes when you're pregnant. You need more sleep and you suddenly like become like, you have less deep sleep and more REM sleep, so you have vivid dreams. Another symptoms that a lot of people get gassy, get constipated. I don't get constipated, but I get gassy, which can be awkward. And incontinence. Like a lot of women, they don't want to talk about incontinence just because it's like you peed yourself. Okay, there were times when I would go out of my house, sneezed without control. Whoops, come back into the house, change my underwear, pants, and go back again. Okay, this happened multiple times. So the way to cure incontinence is actually Kegel exercises. Is actually the pelvic floor exercise we do in yoga. It's when you engage your mula bandha. But the thing is, every time you sneeze or cough, you have to pre-engage before you sneeze. If you didn't pre-engage, if it's like out of nowhere, you're having allergies and you sneeze like without, then very bad, very bad. So I feel like incontinence the first time was actually worse than the second time. I guess the first time I just didn't know how to, but second time I did way more pelvic floor exercise to recover after the first pregnancy. So I felt like I got better pelvic floor engagement this time, even though I already went through childbirth. But the problem is you have to engage right before you sneeze out or else pee yourself. There are also other symptoms that women, they don't talk about. Like my signs of labor was like I had diarrhea, full on diarrhea for 3 days. And there are also other symptoms like sore boobs. It's just so uncomfortable. And it's just the swollenness and then, it feels like my life quality decreased a lot when I'm pregnant. But again, everyone is different. I talked to some women, they're like, never experienced those except for maybe the pelvic floor thing. All right, so the last thing is pregnancy do's and don'ts. So these are the things that I wish someone told me before I was pregnant. The first thing is listen to your body. Your body is your best teacher. No one knows how you feel. No one knows what your body is experiencing. No one knows, including your doctor, don't know what's going on. So listen to your body. Second of all, always ask for a second opinion. Like, never just trust one source of information, period. The third thing is to take care of yourself. Is very important because if you don't take care of yourself, no one will. Maybe your husband will, but wait for your second baby because now my husband's taking care of my baby, number one. So truly no one's taking care of me. Finally, is there also things you kind of want to be mindful of, like the toxins in your life. Just reduce the risk. Don't listen to who is the person not to listen to. Do not listen to random people on the internet, including myself, like TikTokers, Instagrammers, like maybe it's safe for them. Maybe they're just doing it for the views. Maybe just drawing your attention, but they're not medical professionals. Even your doula is a support person. They're not medically trained. If you actually look up how much training doula has compared to midwives, nurse midwives, and OBGYN, it's way more minimal. Like I have friends who just became doula over 1 month so that she can be the support person for her best friend during birth. But I wouldn't go to them for medical advice. The last thing is there are going to be people around you give you opinions, their opinions, judgments. Oops. My cats are here. Don't listen to them. Just listen to your body, be yourself. Like people around you, they're thinking they're helping. Sometimes they just make you feel worse and they don't know it. And then they do it with the best intention in the world. But don't listen to them. Just listen to your body, your doctor, ask for second opinion. Ask for your friends. Their stories could be really helpful to you. But at the end of the day, it is up to you in terms of what you want to do with your body, with your baby. So don't let other people's opinions, judgments, what they think affects you. I know it's very hard to say, but when you become a mom, it just becomes stronger in that regard. Like it just I couldn't care less about what's going on in the world as long as my baby is safe and healthy. Like, just think about that and think about like what is truly important to you. So other people are like, don't do this. I'm like, or other people are like, why don't you do this? It's okay. If my body tells me to do something or not do something, it's none of their business. Just nod and say, thank you. Thank you for caring. Alrighty, that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this video is helpful to you, whether you're pregnant, congratulations, or if you're thinking about getting pregnant. I wish someone told me about this. But at the end of the day, it is up to you. So if you're pregnant, congratulations. If you're thinking about trying babies, it's such an exciting moment of life. And I wish you the best. Before you go, thumbs up and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!